this is something that every controller needs going forward. Stick drift is a term that has gamers waking up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night, and a lot of that has to do with the technology that's been in these different controllers for decades now. And finally, we're getting to a point where I'm seeing controllers come out that are much more approachable in terms of the price and the quality, that we can leave that behind us. And you know what? GameSir reached out to me and asked if they could send over a controller to sponsor a video. You see these professional grade controllers come out and they look cool, but then you look at the price and go, yeah, it's way more than I was thinking for a controller. This one, however, comes in right around what a lot of first-party controllers are going for right now, but they do have several features, including TMR sticks built in, and that's the stuff I wanted to go over here today. So if you guys enjoy the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. So this is the G7 Pro 8K PC. They've done this in collaboration with AIM Labs, and this is currently set up on their website for pre-order at $89.99, all right, so $90 essentially. And they have a whole slew of features for this controller, but I haven't opened it yet. I figured we would do that here. Okay, first thing you see when you open the box, we have the controller at the top, and it looks like it actually comes with a charging stand. I really like these, by the way. I've used these different charging stands for some of my controllers, and it just is a nice spot to drop your controller on top of when obviously you're not playing. It also looks a lot nicer. Looks like we have different D-pad toppers. I'm old school. I just like the cross D-pad. I don't need the disc or the kind of in between here. I know people do like the disc one here because it's easier to kind of rotate from one arrow to the next. I like my platformers just with the cross D-pad here. We also have our 2.4 gigahertz adapter that'll just plug in through USB. We have a nice braided USB-C to Type A charge cable. It's a pretty good length too. I'd say 8 to 10 feet, and because it's braided, it won't get tangled up as easily. It also feels much higher quality. We have all types of our joystick toppers here, so you can decide which one you want. Maybe you want one like this that's more of like a dome shape, or you want one that has the indent. But let's get to the controller. So I do like that they have some guards here around the joysticks for shipping. So we have to pop those off, but it'll protect it from if it gets hit during shipping or something, or could affect the joysticks. This controller is interesting. It kind of reminds me a bit of like the old school translucent controllers. You know, like I'm thinking of the PlayStation controllers that were just like clear, kind of ghost blue. A, B, X, and Y are optical micro switches, and you can feel it when you press it. It's almost like a mixture of both. Has sort of that, almost that rubber membrane press, but then as you get towards the bottom, it has kind of that click that you would expect with a micro switch. You can kind of hear the difference between A and then what we have for start. That is just complete micro switch. We have multiple additional buttons. We have 2 extra buttons on the top here, and then on the back, we have 2 macro buttons. I do like that on the back you have a lock switch for either side with the macro buttons. So let's say you're not using them for a certain game and you don't want to accidentally press one. You flip either lock on and all of a sudden it's completely blocked, so you can't press it down by accident. We also have our trigger stops. So there's that argument back and forth, analog or digital triggers. Well, in this case, you can technically have both. So if you leave it off, you can see it's just standard analog trigger, has good travel and feel to it. But then you flip these on, and it's not only a digital trigger, it's like a micro switch, like clicky digital trigger. Very, very responsive. So that's actually pretty cool and kind of interesting the way they have that set up. You can do one or the other, I guess, if you need one to be analog and one to just be a digital trigger. You do also have a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack on the bottom of the controller, so you can plug your headphones in or microphone for communication. There's a guard right here for the plug-in on your USB-C. So if you're someone who wants to use it wired rather than Bluetooth or 2.4 gigahertz, you plug that in and that'll just make it so it's a little added stability, so it can't necessarily break off of there easily. Then finally, I did want to talk about the sticks themselves, as this should be a big draw for a lot of people who maybe are kind of tired of stick drift. Like even the concern about stick drift has really pushed people towards looking towards Hall effect sensor sticks, or in this case, TMR, which stands for tunneling magnetoresistance. So the idea here, or the hierarchy, I guess, of sticks at this time, you have the bottom of the rung, which are the standard potentiometer sticks. And that's what you see in all like the platform first party controllers right now, and what we've mostly had in majority, I'd say, of different controllers. And that's the stick that tends to get the most complaints around stick drift. Right above that are Hall effect sensor sticks. Those use magnets. And because there's no contact, say with a potentiometer one where you have a wiper against a carbon pad that can create all kinds of debris, you don't have that necessarily with Hall effect sensors. Now above that at this point are TMR sticks, and that's still similar to Hall effect, but it's like a step up. It's going from rumble to HD rumble, as an example. So it is more precise, and because of that, you end up getting a much more responsive stick overall without the concern of stick drift. And it makes sense that it would find its way into a controller that GameSir is kind of positioning in sort of the competitive scene. But again, I'm used to seeing TMR sticks on controllers that are like $150 or more. So seeing one show up at the $90 price point is quite enticing, since, let's face it, if you buy one controller with the potentiometer sticks, it drifts, you buy another one. I mean, we see what these controllers are going for right now with potentiometers in them. You may as well have bought one that was a little more expensive with a TMR setup. I did mention I wanted to change the D-pad out and go with the cross design. It says you can just pull this guy up. There we go. And that's just held on with the magnets down here. You can see it looks like the pins right here drop in as well as up here. Yep, so easy to remove, toolless really, because then I should be able to just pick up our D-pad. It's held on with a few posts, it says underneath, which it is. There we go. The cross D-pad right in there. Look at that. They even have some symbols there on the D-pad, plus and minus, a controller, and then a little person. You do have that switch back here for either 2.4 gigahertz using that dongle, or Bluetooth, depending on, of course, which one's more convenient for you at the time. I think I'm gonna stick to just using the 2.4 gigahertz. It's just much more responsive, and I have that option with an additional USB port that's open. I fired up Forza Horizon 5 real quick just to kind of test out the controller here. I plugged in the 2.4 gigahertz dongle. I just made it easier just to connect it that way. And I wanted to try out a few things. One, obviously the TMR sticks, see how responsive they are, and if I just, like, they're pretty quick. It's almost like instant when you move them around, which is good, because the other thing comes down to dead zones, and when you have potentiometer joysticks, the dead zone tends to be pretty large, actually. Even with Hall effect joysticks, kind of a similar thing, not as like serious in terms of the dead zone, but for TMR, it's like the preciseness of the movement and what it can track, it's pretty noticeable. And then also being able to try out the analog triggers here. It's as you expect to be able to like feather the throttle or the intensity of the braking. And if I drive through the grass, you can see the rumble motors, as they have a rumble motor in either handle here, right up against your palm. You can see them spinning like crazy right now as I'm driving through the grass. So you get like a nice intensity since it's right up against your palm. Taking the controller apart is pretty simple. Now the front has that main faceplate we were going over earlier, but then also on either side, the two grips do lift off. They're also held on by magnets. So I guess I could see some more customization down the line with that. But once you remove those, you have some torque screws all the way around the sides, and then that front main plastic piece does lift off. A, B, X, and Y went with it, so you gotta be careful of that. But what's pretty cool about this is A, B, X, and Y, as I mentioned, kind of have this rubber membrane micro switch combo. And you can see it here where there's a main plastic guard on top, and then you have the rubber underneath, which then is sitting on top of micro switches. So that's kind of how you get that interesting button press feel, but you can hear that micro switch press at the bottom of the overall travel for the button. The D-pad, they do have a spring underneath that is constantly adding pressure to it. So that is nice because it doesn't feel like a D-pad that just floats around, and you can kind of see why with the added pressure here. The audio port on the bottom is a plug-in one, so it's not directly soldered to the board. The USB-C at the top is, and so that kind of makes sense why they have the additional guard that they have with the controller, because you certainly don't want to break that USB-C port. Both rumble motors do plug in, And then we also have our TMR sticks. I wanted to get a nice close-up of them. Not that you can really see what's necessarily going on from the sides, although you can see the button that you press down when you click in, because in order to set this up, they will have that kind of off to the side. In this case, it appears to be kind of at the top here. I do like the red on the thumbsticks, even though most people aren't really going to see that necessarily when they're using it. I don't know, just it looks nice against the black PCB board. I will say the battery is the last thing that you get to, so it is kind of buried in there, unfortunately. I've been thinking more and more about getting a dedicated controller for the living room when I set up maybe a future Steam machine or a PC that I just kind of build for it, and I think this might be one of the leading candidates to have set up. At least definitely one of the controllers I can pick from there, even for different multiplayer games. But let me know what you guys think about the G7 Pro 8K controller from GameSir down in the comments, whether you have maybe experience with other GameSir controllers, or this is one you already had your eye on and you're thinking of picking it up. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.